What is up, guys, and welcome to this video. And in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to design, model, and create this 3D printed NASA neon sign. What is up, guys, and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to design this really cool neon 3D printed NASA sign, and I've created this sign in order to recreate a really popular, obviously, space agency, NASA. And to be honest with you guys, this project took quite a bit of time, but I'm happy to present you guys exactly how to model this, how to create this, and exactly how to piece this together. That way you guys can use this as your own interior art, or maybe even gift it to someone else. If you guys were to look up exactly the approximate cost on exactly how to make something like this, it would be pretty expensive, but I've managed to break everything down for you guys where you can actually make this into a really cool sign without having to spend too much money or having to break the bank. Now, of course, you will need additional tools and resources in order to make this project work, but everything is reasonable and you can easily find these types of materials and assets on Amazon. Now, with that said, I've went ahead and printed two designs here. The very big one right here, that the one that's actually lit up, is actually controlled by a remote, which is what we're going to be covering in today's video. It's a Bluetooth remote that actually allows me to turn it on, turn it off, and turn it back on, and adjust the brightness and make it even brighter than it needs to be. Now, this one's actually not powered on because it doesn't actually have a remote. It just connects directly to an outlet, and if I were to power this on, this would be extremely bright and probably even overpower this one, and only because this is actually at the lowest setting at this moment until I put it at the highest setting. But with that said, I'm actually going to just turn these off for now. Now, a few quick disclaimers before I actually get started with this video. So how this video is structured, it's structured into four main parts. The first thing is actually modeling everything in Fusion 360, okay? So what I went ahead and did is I created a separate video, and there's going to be a title card up above where you can actually click and watch that video. That video is actually not included in this video, and the reason for that is I wanted to make it as beginner friendly and transparent and make it as detailed as I can without having to rush things or kind of glance or skip over things. So if you are a complete beginner in Fusion 360, which is the program we are going to be using to actually model and create this, then I pretty much broke it down enough where even a complete beginner could watch that video and actually make this in a CAD software. The second thing we'll be covering is the exact tools you will need in order to make this project work. Now, of course, you will need a 3D printer to actually print this. This is a 3D printed design, and the only reason we need the 3D printer is because that's going to create the layout and the actual outline of where the neon is going to sit. So whether you have an Ender 3 Pro, an Ender 3, an Ender 5, any printer with a build plate of 220 by 220 by 300, you can easily print this design here. Now, this is as big as it goes on my Ender 3 Pro, and of course, if you do have a bigger printer, then you can obviously go for a bigger size, and it's going to be based on exactly what you want to accomplish with this video. In the modeling video, that of course covers everything, that way you can print according to what dimensions you want to accomplish. I printed this using my my longer LK5 Pro, which has a build volume of about 300 by 300 by 400. And to be honest with you guys, if you do have a bigger printer, I would highly recommend printing with a bigger printer anyway. And the reason for that is because it makes it a lot easier during the assembly process. The only drawbacks to that is that you would of course be using more material. There's more material involved with this. There's a longer print time in order to make this project compared to something like this. This is a lot smaller. This is about 8 inches, 8.2 inches in height. And I'm also not including these outlines right here that are going out, that little red streak that goes around the design itself. But if you do have an Ender 3 Pro, or if you have a small printer like that, then of course you would want to stick to this model, as it's not possible to actually print at a bigger size unless you have a bigger printer. Now, the third thing I'll be covering is the exact assembly process. Now, this part is a little bit lengthy, and I made sure to cut or take anything out that's unnecessary or speed up things that might take a little bit of time, because projects like these do require lots of patience, and there's a lot of pieces that go into this. You'd imagine that we have this white line here, this red, piece right here, these small little letters that go in here, the outside, and all of these have to be connected to a wire. So if one piece is faulty or not going smoothly, then obviously, things will go wrong, which you will need patience, and obviously having the soldering skills, the patience, and plenty of time on hand to make this work will definitely make this easier. Now, the fourth thing is not really a fourth section or a fourth part to this video. It's more so the level of difficulty when it comes to creating a project like this. And the reason for that is because this is not an easy project. If you are a complete beginner, this might be a little bit tedious at first, and you will make a couple of mistakes, and that's okay. We are all learning and we're all going through the same process. When I first started doing something like this, it took a lot of tries, and I can't even tell you how many tries it took me before I actually stumbled onto this final piece here. But pretty much by the end of the process, if you do stick throughout the entire piece, everything will make pretty much, complete sense, and you'll be able to replicate this process on your own and for many other designs that I'll also feature later on in future videos as well. So before we actually jump into the actual tools necessary to actually make this project work, first things first is that I have actually created the modeling section in a different video. And the reason for that is that I wanted to be completely transparent and kind of break down exactly what you need to know when it comes to making this in Fusion 360. So there will of course be a title card above. If you guys want to watch that video, I would highly recommend you guys watch it. But if you do not want to do the modeling and you just rather not touch anything when it comes to CAD or Fusion 360 or anything like that, or have to download some sort of program to your computer, there will be a link down below. Of course, it'll be for purchase, but that's just to be transparent with you guys. And of course, if you want to model it and still purchase it just to have the files in hand, it would greatly help out the channel. But I do want to be transparent with you guys, so if you guys rather model this yourself for free, I show you guys exactly how to do that. There will be a title card above. Watch that video and then come back to this video. That way we can cover the tools and assembly portion. But if you rather just have something printing right now while you actually watch the video when it comes to the assembly and tools section, there will be a link down below. You can purchase the STL. I'll leave the STL file for both small for an Ender 3 and Ender 3 Pro for a smaller printer, and as well as for a bigger printer. And now of course, if you guys can choose exactly what you guys want, just to be completely transparent with you guys as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and cover exactly what tools you need to make this project work. Okay everyone, so before I do cover the assembly and the tools to create this project, I do want to cover a few things before we actually jump into that. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is me actually modeling the design, and this is actually recorded from the modeling tutorial in a different video. There'll be a title card up above where you can actually watch that video if you prefer to model this, but if you just choose to watch the assembly video, that's fine. Now, I do want to cover a few things that I had to account for when it came to creating this project. The first thing was that creating this sign, I had to account all of the variable factors, or all the factors that came into play when it came to making this. The first thing was that using an Ender 3 Pro, I had to build what is essentially a big sign on such a small printer. If you were to go online and look up for neon signs around this, image, they're fairly large. They are pretty big in size, and there's a reason for that, and because there's a lot of small spaces. And you could imagine you have the outer white circle, you have the red streak, you have the circle that wraps around the letters, and you have the letters itself. Those are a bunch of pieces that you have to account for, and on top of that, you have to make sure that the wiring could fit snugly to the actual neon itself. Because the last thing you'd want is to print this and then having to assemble this together only to find out that maybe the wiring may not fit, or the neon may not fit, or maybe the wiring itself might disconnect from the neon over time, which is essentially what we want to avoid. Additionally, my second priority was being able to hide those wires. Now, as you can see in the modeling, you can see it's kind of like there is a little crevice where you can fit the neon itself, but on top or underneath that crevice is kind of like a second layer. So that layer is essentially where all the wiring sits. And the difficulty when it comes to something like this is making sure that the dimensions are right. and making sure there's enough space for both the neon and the wiring. But on top of that, I think the total design came out fine, and which is what I'm going to cover in the assembly process coming up shortly. Hey everyone, so we are going to go ahead and get started with the assembly process of this video. And like any assembly, we will of course need tools in order to make this process into a reality. And I'll of course be covering exactly what tools and what accessories you will need in order to put this thing together and making sure that your sign comes out looking amazing. So this is the final print here. We have everything ready to go. We have all the holes put into place. We have all the slots open and available, all the holes you can see through this print. You can barely see, but there's one in there. And this is pretty much ready to be put together with the neon, and we're pretty much all set and done. The next thing we'll need is tools in order to put that neon into those slots and making sure we're soldering them into place. So the first thing we need to do is that we need to get a knife. So we'll need a knife in order to put this project together. Okay, this is a Stanley knife. I got this off of Amazon, and it was fairly inexpensive. The next thing we'll need some sort of wiring strips. You can buy these off of Amazon as well. I think I got this at a hardware store, but this is, you know, essentially what we use to strip the neon, and as well as you can also strip wiring when we're soldering things together. So that is crucial. We'll also, of course, need black and red wiring. This is the positive and negative. So red being positive and the black being negative. Let's see if this focuses. If not, totally fine. Okay, so it's not focusing, but you can buy this on Amazon. It's really inexpensive as well. Next thing you need, of course, solder wire. This is fine solder wire. I think this actually came in a kit when I purchased my soldering kit. Or if you want to purchase fine solder wire on its own, also a great buy on Amazon. Well, of course, we'll need some sort of electrical outlet in which we can plug into some sort of outlet and actually power on the neon. Neon doesn't just get powered on by thin air, so we'll of course need to power it on through something that connects to an outlet. I bought this on Amazon. This is a 12 voltage AC/DC adapter. You can see the model number and everything there. You can buy these on Amazon, really inexpensive stuff. And this also came with it. You basically plug this into the actual outlet here, and then you put your red and black wire here by the, let's see if this focuses. Right there, there is a, it's not focusing, but there's a positive and negative embedded sign there in which you put the wire in, so that way you know where to put it. I don't know if you can kind of see that. If not, totally fine, but from there, we'll need that too. Second thing, or the second to last thing, we'll of course need neon. So for this project, we'll need white neon and red neon. So the white is the letters and the white is the outer circle. The red is this red line right here that goes all the way around there. And the white is also on the outer line of the circle. So we'll need white for this. I'm gonna do a quick power on just so you guys can see what it looks like. And it's gonna be really quick, so there you go. See, fairly simple stuff. I also have the red one. This is the red one right here. And this is colored differently. I believe this is just a different brand that I purchased from. But you can see I'm gonna power this on. This one's actually doesn't have one of these because the white is actually new. I barely just purchased this, but this one, I've had this for a while. And you see, as I turn it on, as I connect it, you can see that it powers on. So this one's actually red. On camera, it looks a little orange, but it's actually red in person. So maybe it's just a camera that picks it up, or something else, but it's actually red in person. Next thing we'll need, or the last thing we'll need, is a soldering iron. So you can purchase this on Amazon. They are really inexpensive. I think this was $25, and this also came with this. And I believe it came with some of this red and black wire as well. So these are really expensive tools that you'll need. And once you have the set of tools in hand, you pretty much already set for this project to get started. But without this, this project would not be possible. You will need this in order to make this a reality. You'll need this, you need the solder wire, and you'll of course need some sort of outlet, and as well as the neon. Probably everything else you probably don't need. You could probably find like scissors or usually household tools around, but other than that, you will need these specialty tools in order to make this a reality. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with putting everything together and actually putting the neon strips into the slots where we'll be using that to actually solder everything together. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put away the tools. We won't be needing these. And what we will be needing is this right here and the actual neon itself. So if you purchase the neon, or if you do decide to purchase neon, you wanna make sure you go for neon that's DIY, specifically for DIY. So this one is for DIY. And the way you would know is that there's certain black lines here that show where you can cut in between. Okay, and that's important because if it does not have that, you will not be able to solder or you will not be able to cut and solder where you want to solder, okay? And that's extremely important. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and make my first cut since I actually don't even need this piece right here. I'm gonna just go ahead and cut it. You can see that little black line right there. You can kind of see it. I'm gonna just go ahead and cut that right there. It should come off cleanly, just like that. It's really simple stuff. And we'll not need this anymore. You can probably just test this out just to see what color it is, but other than that, it's not really useful to us anymore. First things first is actually assembling everything and cutting everything to size first. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it to size. And from here, I can see that there's a wall here. So that means that I cannot go ahead and keep going. So that means I have to cut somewhere in here and actually fit the strip first. So I'm gonna go ahead and fit the strip, and I'm actually gonna cut it. You can see here where I'm gonna cut. So let's see if the strip fits in here, and then if I'm gonna cut it, it's gonna be right there. There's a little black line right there that I'm gonna cut. Simple enough, and cut. Perfect. Really simple stuff. Now, don't worry about if it's cut to size exactly, just leave it as is. You do not want to think about these details just yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the remainder of the strips into place. That way you can see exactly what it looks like when you have all the strips set up without actually having any sort of soldering or wiring connected yet. Okay, so I've finished putting all of the strips together. You can see that all the strips fit snugly into place. Now, some of them are longer than others. Now, of course, I have not cut it to size just yet. I'm basically just putting everything together, just making sure I have exactly the right amount of materials needed in order to make this project into a reality. Now, of course, nothing is put on just yet. It does not even turn on. It doesn't even work at this moment because nothing is put together. But as you can see, we have a nice clean looking design. Even though it's not powered on just yet, it still looks great. Even though it doesn't even turn on, you can just quite tell that after we finish putting everything together, it's going to look fantastic. And the fact that it's completely clean on the back, there's going to be no wires on this. That's the best part about it. You can even see that it gives us a nice clean look. And then once we are finished with this project, it's going to come out absolutely amazing. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm actually going to go ahead and get started with the soldering process. That way we can actually piece everything together and create the final product. So when it came to making this video, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to speak over while assembling this process or actually narrate this. It wasn't until actually videoing it, I think it would actually be easier to narrate it because I can probably give much more in-depth details when it came to actually assembling this. But essentially the first step of this process is to cut all the strips to size and then cut into the strips itself. Now you can see I'm using just a simple tool, which is the knife, and then I'm cutting into the neon flex itself. And what I'm doing is just kind of cutting on the right hand side where the actual line where you can actually cut the strip itself, or the neon flex itself. And what I essentially want is to kind of take out that existing strip inside, and that's where we're actually going to solder the actual neon flex. As you can see, there is a positive and negative kind of there's a little indicator on the strip itself that's positive and negative, and anything on the left or right side is kind of just the LEDs itself. But our main focus here is to solder on that little kind of silver plated piece on this design. Moving forward, you know, since we're going to be soldering on that, we will need the necessary tools in order to make this happen. So you'll of course need a soldering iron, and you will obviously need some wire and some fine solder wire. Now, the difficulty with this is kind of having to pull the strip out of the Neon Flex itself, and I try not to take it out too much, but also just enough where I can actually work on it itself. So as you can see here, this is when I begin the soldering process, and what I'm essentially doing is just melting the fine solder wire onto the actual silver plate itself. And as you can see, when I'm actually melting it, you can see it kind of forms like a little bubble on that little plate. And that's essentially what you want. You want to melt that little wire. You're kind of pushing the wire towards that plate, and you are essentially forming a small bubble on that little plate. And that's essentially what kind of sets the groundwork. So when you connect the wires to that little bubble, that would be able to transfer the electricity to actually power on the light itself. And another thing, so if you do decide to actually recreate this, you can actually see fumes coming out where I actually solder. Now, of course, if you do have some sort of fan, there's a soldering fan available on Amazon. There'll be a link down below that I would highly recommend that. Mine actually broke, but I'm actually shifting away from the actual soldering process. But when I'm actually filming this, so I'm actually not inhaling those, like I'm kind of shifted away so I don't. But as you can see here, our final product is supposed to look like this. You're supposed to have those bubbles, those little, the fine wire soldered onto the actual board itself, and it essentially forms a bubble. You can see that's essentially what you want. That positive piece up top is soldered, and that bottom piece is soldered as well. And essentially the next step is to actually remelt that little fine wire again so that we can actually stick the actual wire. Now keep in mind the red wire is positive and the black wire is negative. Additionally, if by any chance if you do connect it and it doesn't power on, please make sure that the the positive or negative wires aren't touching. So the actual rubber strip that's on the black and red can touch, but the actual the copper inside, the actual the wiring inside the red and black, those cannot touch. If they touch each other when you have the light, when you have it connected to an outlet, it's actually not even going to turn on. You'll actually see that the outlet turns off because they just kind of cancel each other out. But as you can see, this is a fine, clean cut solder. I think it came out well, and that's essentially what you want to replicate throughout the entire process of the video. And as you can see, what I'm essentially doing here is just melting the actual solder wire that we just put onto the board itself. And then we are essentially just kind of pushing the wire in. So there's not a lot of force or anything of that nature, but essentially you're just melting the thing you've already melted so that it kind of bonds together with the wire from the actual, the wiring, if that makes sense. And once you melt it, it actually cools down very fast. So you can see, like, once I have it connected together, they actually don't connect or disconnect unless I use a good amount of force to disconnect them. So once you melt that fine solder wire, you have maybe about a 1 to 2 second window to actually have those wires, the red and black wires, set in place before it actually, turns from a liquid to a solid. And as you can see, after the soldering process, it's connected. So you might be asking, why am I essentially creating 3 separate wires for the actual Neon itself? Now, as you can see, one wire has to go somewhere else where it actually connects to the actual DC outlet. Another one has to connect to one on the other side of the print itself, and another one has to connect to the other side as well. So as you can see, if you followed along in the modeling video, you can see that we made holes appropriate to actually put this piece together, and it actually fits quite snugly, but just enough where it fits very tight in there, and as well as enough space so the wiring can actually fit inside. And as you can see, the wiring actually goes through that hole, and now we can connect to the next piece that's going to get connected to the right hand side. A quick note is to also test all the other sides that you did connect wiring to. That's very important, as you do not want to connect just 3 pieces and then all of a sudden figure out that, you know, maybe you didn't test something along the way and then maybe one piece didn't actually work. I had to figure this out the hard way, whereas maybe, you know, I was soldering and maybe one wiring that I put on together, you know, maybe I put it together lazily and, you know, it didn't connect firmly enough or good. And you don't want to find that out towards the end of the process. You rather just test, you want to test along the way, and you'll find a lot of this is just basically repeating the exact same process. You're basically going to cut the neon, you're going to strip the wires, you're going to solder onto the board, and then you're just going to place it into the actual print itself. So with that said, I'll come back to you guys once I am partway throughout this entire process. Okay everyone, so I finished connecting everything to the outside of the design so far. So everything's already ready to go and set up, so we can start connecting these actual letters, and it's actually actual white ring that goes around it as well. I basically set up this red here, white, white, and red. So we're gonna go ahead and power this on just to see exactly what it looks like. And I'm gonna go ahead and quickly do a quick test. This is not connected by any means, but 3, 2, 1, go. Perfect. So I can see that it looks great. It looks great so far. I think the red here, maybe there's something going on here. This has to be cut since it's actually going outside. But other than that, I think it's just this red light here, but that's an easy fix. But other than that, it looks great so far. So let me do another quick test. I'm actually going to do it from the side. It actually comes out from behind the sign. So you can see I have a little hole here. Everything's clean from the back. There's no wires except this one. This actually goes to the power outlet, or that connects directly to, you know, some sort of remote, or, you know, some sort of outlet if you choose. So let's see, do a quick test. Boom. Looks great so far. Yeah. So quick disclaimer, guys, what I see in person looks absolutely different from what you guys see. So for example, what you see here, we're black over here. This is a lot darker on camera than in person. In person, it's not even noticeable. I'm not sure why the camera shows it that way. So let me do a quick test one more time. Yeah, in person, you can't really tell too much. It's not even, you have to, if I look for it, then yeah, it's noticeable. But other than that, on camera, it looks extremely noticeable, but in person, not so much. But so far, it actually turned out good. I think what I'm still do, I'm still gonna fix this part here, just see what's going on. But other than that, the sign is turning out great. I love that there's absolutely no wires at all. It's pretty clean. You can see here, all the wires are kept underneath inside, and you can't really tell, you know, it's like a clean, it's really durable, clean print. And yeah, let's go ahead and actually finish this project. Okay guys, so here we go. I've finally finished the design here, and so far, let me just clean up a bit. It looks great. It's all the wiring is inside, no wiring on the back, completely flushed in. You can't even, nothing is protruding out. You can see everything's in, and it looks great. You can see everything's flushed in, all the corners. You can see that's the design keeps all of the neon flex internal, or in the little seams here, and it looks great. It looks absolutely fantastic. So, moment of truth, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on and show you guys exactly what it looks like. From here, wow, that looks great. So I have it connected, it's not soldered on, but you can see here, we are basically done with the project. So one additional thing I'm gonna do here is I'm actually going to add a remote control so I can control this via a Bluetooth remote. So here I have one here, and you can find these pretty cheaply on Amazon. These do not cost that much. I believe this was about $4.50 for one, so but you have to buy it in a bundle. So they give you two, and you see you have the remotes, and then you have the receiver here. You can see this is the receiver. Let's see, it goes like this. LED controller, let's see, there you go, LED controller. And you can see here, if you can, there you go. So I'm not sure why it keeps, okay. This is where it actually connects to the wire, to the actual design here. And this is where you want to connect to the outlet, because if you do it the other way, I've done this in the past. So for example, this is the outlet part. If you connect the outlet part to this section here, what's going to happen is that it's not going to work. It might like just flicker, but other than that, it's not going to work. So you have to connect it through where it says LED, and it's going to tell you right here that the LED comes out from this portion here, and this is where we're going to connect this into this wire right here. Then from here, we'd be able to control the brightness. We can dim the brightness here, add it, and obviously it gives us a couple of options here, the modes, the speeds, just kind of a generic option to making this into a Bluetooth, you know, piece. So this is a great addition. I'm gonna go ahead and add this really quickly. Okay guys, so I have completely connected the entire neon sign to an actual outlet. So essentially what I did here is that I have this connected to the LED remote, and the way I have that connected is through some heat shrinks. So I basically soldered these wires soldered these red wires here together. Then I use a heat shrink to keep them together. That way they're not going to disconnect by any means. And then I have it connected through this thing right here, which is connected to an outlet. And then there we go. That's pretty much the final piece of this project. Now, the time is to test out the remote and see the functions that are available with this. So obviously we have the light. Oops, sorry guys, didn't tell you about that. Here we have just the on switch, and we're gonna test the brightness here. So we have 100%, that's full brightness, and that's really bright. I cannot tell you guys how insanely bright that is on camera, but in person, it's insane. This is medium, this is 25. That 100% is really bright. That red really pops here too. That white, especially, not even hot at all. It looks absolutely great. Careful guys, there is a strobe warning, so if that does toggle on, you guys have a disclaimer here. So here's modes. Oh wow, I'm gonna just change that. That's really fast. You can see there's tons of options here. And I'm sure you're not gonna be using them all, but yeah, that's enough for that. So there is quite a bit of options here, and I did warn you guys about the strobe, but in all honesty, this looks absolutely great. So this was printed using my LK, or my longer LK5, and this is because this has a larger build volume. or that printer has a larger build volume, so you're able to build much bigger. I made an additional piece here, same exact thing. Let me just show you guys really quick. And this was printed on my Ender 3. Same exact thing. The only thing is that this is smaller. I believe this is 8.2 in height, only because the Ender 3 has a 220 by 220 millimeter bed. So I had to also account for this thing right here, obviously, because this is here that also changes some things. This right here as well, so it's not just like a one circle type of thing, it's like multiple things that are coming out of it. So I could have made this a little bit bigger, only if the printer bed was a little bit bigger, but it still looks just as great. This one does power on too, it's just not connected to anything. Exact same thing. This one's the complete for a bigger bed, but it looks absolutely amazing. You can see both of them. No wires, it's clean, literally as clean as it could be, literally like as if it came out of a factory or something. You can see everything's put together nice and neat. It fits nice and snug. Obviously, maybe if you really cared about these edges here, there is some end caps that they have for Neon Flex. Those are additional cost, of course. You would have to buy those on Amazon. They're not really expensive. Nothing about it's expensive. It's just everything's an additional cost. But wow, this is extremely big. I probably should have printed this a little bit bigger on my LK5, as my LK5 could actually handle printing this at this could have been like maybe 2 inches taller if I wanted it to be, but I just didn't want the print time to be extremely long. But with that said, this looks absolutely amazing. I hope you guys had enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you guys can make something like this. So if you guys decide to use your Ender 3, Ender 3 Pro, Ender 5, anything with a 220 by 220, you have a medium-sized printer, then you should definitely start with this. This is a little bit more of an advanced or medium and expertise level when it comes to soldering and putting everything together. So having some general knowledge on this really does help. I recommend if you do have a bigger printer, it's a lot easier to start with the bigger one, as it's just much more room to play with. Oh, you saw that flip there. There's just a lot more room to play with, and you know, it looks absolutely amazing. I can't tell you guys how crazy it looks here, but absolutely stunning. You can see too great. So let me just connect this one so you can show you guys exactly what it looks like. So I have both of them powered on. Both of them, you see this one's powered on here. Absolutely stunning. The same neon I've used. For some reason this looks a little bit different than this one. I think the reason why is because I used a different type of neon. Same Neon Flex, but more so that I used a different manufacturer. I can see that different manufacturers have a different way of dealing with, or when they come to creating the neon. This one's a little bit more of a, I'd say, lighter red, so it's a little bit more pastel. This one, it's a little bit darker. It's more like a stronger red for sure, but on camera, you just, how bright it is, it's absolutely stunning here. So you can see, for some reason on camera it shows like these dark angles, but in person you really don't even see that. That's not even, it doesn't even pick up at all. Maybe it's just the camera, maybe it's just something about the iPhone camera, but this looks absolutely amazing. You can see here both of them turn on, and I think they're an absolute great DIY project to make if you have a 3D printer, knowledge with soldering, and plenty of time to make this. Okay guys, so we pretty much wrapped up this video. I hope you guys had enjoyed it. I hope you guys have found some valuable insight, and let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I also would love to get feedback on how to make this video much better for you guys in future videos, and as well as what other designs we should make next as well. Now, as you can see, I actually have both of these turned on. Don't worry, I'll turn them off in just a second. There is a huge glare on my camera when it comes to this neon, but I think these designs came out extremely well. I love the actual design. I love the white and the red that goes with it. I also love the blue background, the blue matte filament that we use to actually print this and actually make this into a working piece of art here. Now, in my opinion, I think the bigger one looks absolutely amazing. Don't get me wrong, I like the smaller one too, but I personally do like the bigger one. The only drawback that I don't like was the amount of print time that it took me to actually print this and then the actual amount of time to actually create this, and as well as the amount of filament, or excuse me, the amount of neon used in order to put it together. The only thing I do like about the smaller one is that there's a lot less neon that we had to use to put this together, and it was fairly quick to print. On my Ender 3 Pro, it took me about 3 hours to print the smaller one, and there's only about a 2-inch difference between the two. You imagine that the Ender 3 Pro, my Ender 3 Pro has a 220 by 220 on the X and Y, whereas my LK5 has about 300 by 300. And I actually could have went bigger on my LK5, but I just did not go with that. I wanted something that would print pretty rapidly. And if I wanted to make the one I have right now bigger, I could have obviously done that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn these off, as they probably are annoying you guys. They're really bright. So with that said, guys, I hope you guys had enjoyed this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below in the comment section below. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the video. Liking the video pretty much helps me out a lot. And if you guys want to see more videos just like this, there's going to be a notification bell down below in which you can click that bell, and of course you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. And as well as let me know what designs we should make next in the next video, okay? What designs or artwork or references that we can use in order to create different designs, rather than just, me making videos on what I think you guys will want to see. Of course, just to wrap everything up, I think this project came out great. I absolutely love the design, and I think I probably might keep the big one to myself. I might give the smaller one to someone else, but I'm not too sure just yet. And as well as, like I said, if you guys want to purchase the STL and actually start printing right away rather than actually having to model it yourself, if you actually didn't want to model it yourself, the STL file will be down below at a reasonable cost. You of course get the smaller one and the bigger one, but of course there's a title card up above. You can watch that video. I show you how to model it step by step. I'm very transparent and I try to break down everything as much as possible. That video is quite lengthy, but of course it shows you exactly how to create this, and I try to break everything down as much as possible. But with that said, I hope you guys had enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.